Hey everyone, Dan here. We're a bit after market close on Monday, June 7th. We're going to do that Monday thing and take a look at Palantir. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And let's jump right in. So here's our macro chart, 3-month, 2-hour chart. These are the price zones that we were looking at last week. At that time, I said, we should be looking at this 2186 as a really strong bounce zone slash potential stop loss if you were looking at that, if that was sort of like in your field of vision for where you were currently trading. I did say these purple zones, that's what I'd said would be a potential really strong dip buy bounce zone. So in other words, if you see the price dipping into there and you have for some reason just really strong conviction that the stock is going to bounce, you could start averaging it at that point. What I think the smarter thing to do is when you see the price coming into that zone, wait for it to show a sign of strength, which can just be a green candle or a couple of green candles, depending on the time frame that you're on, and start taking a position there. So it did get just a wick into that zone, and then has moved up and off of it ever since, establishing support basically penny for penny at that 2278 that we had charted, and used that as a springboard to get itself nearly to 25, and then has sort of like been trying to fight to come back to that point since then. One thing that you do kind of see here that may have developed, which will be interesting, could be really, really impactful for the stock, is this entire area right here. This could be a cup and handle. So there's the potential that here's your cup and here's your handle, and now we could be potentially off to the races. So there's something to keep an eye for on the bullish side. Let's get rid of this old chart and let's plot ourselves a new one. So I want to go back to the 3-month window here because I want to extract these targets from previous really strong price activity. So right here, given this previous resistance here, and and support here and here, I think that will be a really strong price area. 24, 22. It's very, very close to that right now, but that should be sort of like at least putting up a strong fight if it were to dip below there. If it does come below, same sort of like purple box situation, I would look at that purple area to be from there to about, probably stretch it a little bit further, about right here. So, to me, if I was looking to take a dip buy position, I don't know that it'll come down here, but as it started to approach that 2369, it'd start to look really strongly and see what it does as it hits that level and or dips slightly underneath it, and then either quickly recovers or starts working its way down to that 2306. But there could be a good range to dip by within that sort of window, if you will, or that block, with a stop loss depending on how risky you want it to be. You could place something all the way sort of down here in the $21 range, or you could have sort of like a cautionary zone that you could use as a tighter stop loss if that was more in your tolerance level. Something right around here in the high 21s, basically like if it can't hold 22 and can't quickly recover. Just remember, give it a little breathing room. Sometimes they dip below and then quickly recover, and you stop loss yourself out too quickly. On the upper side of things, I would look for some stickiness or some, potential price target right around here, this 2571. It would be nice to see a run into the 25s this week, since there was the big attempt last week, 2634. This is a good one here, 2683. These align pretty well with previous much higher price activity as well. And then looking at something around 2790 just before we get to that $28 sort of very psychological zone. This would be a really, really strong one. Turn that green to me, that would be if you can develop support at that 30-36 zone. That to me could say now you have support in the 30s, and you can explore the $30 to $40 range with much higher potential and likelihood. So these are the zones that I'd be looking at in the very, very near term. Hold that 24-22 support. If not, potentially pick up a bounce dip buy zone, 23.69 down to 23.06, with a cautionary / quick stop loss at 21.96 or a further stop loss at 21.41. Upper price targets in the high 25s, mid 26s, and high 26s, and then looking toward the $30 range. On the indicators, the MAs have all made a nice bullish crossover here. So we're working ourselves up. Should provide additional support. That's the other thing to keep in mind. As these dip to that 20, that should provide it some support, as should the 50. And then if it needs it, hopefully it won't, because that's way down below the cut loss at this point. But if it does need it, that 200 might provide some additional support as well. On the RSI side of things, on the higher side, still not overbought, but a bit above the mid-range. So that might draw it down into that dip buy zone a little bit sort of more methodically. And, we are above the baseline on the MACD. Been doing a pretty good job holding these like consistent highs here as the MACD line pushes. But, we are losing. Well, I guess that recent histogram gained, but certainly not against this one and against this one. These from these two, we definitely have a downtick on how high the MACD histogram is heading into the above baseline territory. So there might be some flattening out there. We'll see. But again, that could just give folks an opportunity to get into that dip area. If we look at the shorter term time frame, let me get rid of these so they don't clutter our view. But let's go to the 5-day, 5-minute, and there's this big, really, really difficult topping out area here that's going to have to show that it can get over. I don't know what happened to my box there. It's going to have to show that it can get over this area, but that's going to be a tough one as it makes another run at it. But the more runs that it makes at it, we hope at some point here, just the selling pressure that it's encountering at that level dies down, and that might be enough to get it 225. Additionally, for shorter term, charting and what the situation looks like, this should be a really strong area, this 24-24, but I really prefer, because we're taking into account so much more price activity, unless you're really doing like intraday trading on this or more minute-by-minute stuff, I do think that the charting that we take a look at on that 3-month chart has proven to be much more impactful for Palantir, since we've been doing it, every Monday for several weeks now. We get some familiarity with it and kind of get our bearings. So let's take a look at the indicators, since I would say for price targets and such, I would rely on that 2-hour chart that we just took a look at. Relatively low here on this RSI, so that's good. We're below the midpoint, so that might bring some buying pressure in, might give it another run and sort of test this 24.62 to say 24.80, 84 zone. See if it can burst through there or not finally. And on the MACD side of things, the bearish momentum had come into play quite a bit, actually. Dragged the MACD line down below the baseline, tried to make a run at the baseline and got rejected off of it. So coming down a little bit now. We'll see if it can sort of like wind up some pressure down here, and then that would give it a lot of run room to the upside if it wanted to make a bullish crossover and try to run to the upside. So that's what I'd be looking at. So we're going to do a shorter term volume analysis here of sort of what things look like today. Pretty well splits on the 24.50. Definitely more buys than sells, but relatively close And then 24.45, so just 5 cents lower than that, and a bunch of buying pressure comes in. So you can sort of see like where folks are sort of making their buy and sell decisions. They're within a tight range here. Most of that activity is taking place, and a lot of them are either fairly split or just a little bit on the buy side of things. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of happens in the coming days if we can get another run at that 25 and what that means for Palantir once it establishes support there. If not, there's that purple bounce zone that we just talked about that might give you an opportunity to average down, to dip buy into if you don't have a position yet, whatever it may be. All right, well, good luck this week. It should be another interesting one. I hope you had a good start to your week, and I will see you all in the next video.